So I want to share a quick video with you guys. There's this video that's making its round. It's by a white pastor. The race does not matter to me, but it is important here. And I believe he's out of Alabama. And he is speaking about how God is going to avenge Black people for the crime of slavery. So I want to play it for you, and then I'll give my commentary right after. Check this out.
Now let me say something right quick. I think back on the African American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. Do you hear a black person sing one of those old black Negro spirituals? Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I said, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying to you. You better shut your white mouth. You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South, and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here, and God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you. Listen.
Now, I would love to say this in a much more gentle way, and I'm going to do my best to do that. However, I can't afford to mince my words for the sake of not offending people. So I'm just going to say it straight up, okay? The reality is not everyone is going to be reimbursed. Now, I'm not talking about from an earthly level, okay? Because man cannot reimburse you for what has happened. If they could declare bankruptcy because of the amount of this debt, they would. But there's no courts to go to say, hey, I need to file bankruptcy because I can't repay black people for what my ancestors have done. So that's water under the bridge. Let that go. Okay. The reality is it's going to take an act of God in order to reimburse you. For those that understand the spiritual realm, you understand that God will make it right. He will bring a blessing into your life that will be 100-fold, 1,000-fold, that will reimburse you for what has been done to your lineage. Okay. So I want to talk about this curse that black people are dealing with, because even if you are reimbursed, it's going to be squandered by the curse that so many of you guys are entangled in. You are yoked to this curse. And this is intentional. And I'm going to speak it to you, and I'm going to use scripture to help you understand what I'm speaking on. When the children of Israel left Egypt, they were going through different lands. And you remember there were different wars that happened along the way. And they ended up in a land called Moab. This is where the Moabites were. These are like the enemies of Israel. Well, the king, Balak, heard of what had happened to the Amorites and how the Israelites destroyed them when they came against the Israelites. So what he did is that he called for a prophet by the name Balaam, hear me now, by the name Balaam, to come and curse the Israelites, because he looked at how many of these people there were millions of them. And he said, not only will they lick up the land, meaning like ox, essentially they'll eat all the vegetation, all the food, because there's so many of them, but they'll overpower them because there were so many of them. So what he did is that he called for his officials to go and get Balaam, who was essentially a prophet for hire, and he was going to pay him a fee to curse the Israelites, because he said, whatever you bless is blessed and whatever you curse is cursed. So I need you to curse them so it can weaken them, so I can have power over them and drive them out of this land. You hear me? So when the officials went to Balaam with the fee, God came to Balaam that night and said, you're not leaving with them. When Balaam told them that he can't go with them, the king now sent more esteemed officials to come to Balaam. And God told Balaam, okay, you can leave with them. However, exactly what I tell you to say is what you're going to say. So now Balaam arrives and sees all the people. He says exactly what God tells him to say. You know what he ends up doing? He ends up blessing these people. Every time he opened his mouth when he was supposed to be cursing the people, this is what he was hired to do. Instead, what he ended up doing is blessing the people. You can find the story in Numbers 22 through like 24, 25-ish. So over and over again, Balaam spoke of all the blessings that's going to come upon these people who God has just taken out of Egypt, right? Here's the kicker. After Balaam does all of this, the king, Balak, is upset. He's like, you know what? I would have rewarded you, but your God has now prevented you from being rewarded today. Why? Because every time Balaam would bless the people, the king Balak was like, what are you doing? At this point, say absolutely nothing. If you're not going to curse them the way I told you to, don't bless them. Just shut up. Don't say anything. But Balaam could not help himself. He kept doing what God was telling him to do, which was to bless the people. And here's the part where you understand why false prophets and false teachers are so dangerous to the body, especially those people who operate in a spirit of greed, lust, all of these things. You can call them men of God, women of God, however much you want to. Once they are under that spell, they are not just a curse to themselves, they're a curse to you, the people. Let me help you understand. So now Balaam still wants his money. Okay. He's filled with greed. So what does he do? He does what God tells him to do now. He blesses the people. But now he goes behind closed door and he basically speaks to the Moab king and he lets him know, you want to weaken these people. I cannot curse them. But this is how you curse them. You cause them to curse themselves. You seduce them. You entice them. You send the most beautiful Moabite women to them. Their God hates sexual immorality. You introduce them into your gods, your spirits, all of these different things. So what end up happening is the men, of course, of Israel end up being seduced by these women, and they ended up worshiping their gods, eating sacrificial foods, all of this. And the camp was weakened. So now God's anger turned towards his people because they are a holy nation, they're a priestly nation, and they are essentially defiled now. So guess what God has to do now? He has to destroy them. Why? Because they've cursed themselves. So now let's get back to what Pastor John Kilpatrick said, which is God is going to reimburse his people. Yes, he will. Those same people, he separated the Red Sea for them. However, they still had to follow those 10 commandments. And when they were outside of the order of those 10 commandments, guess what happened? They brought curses upon themselves. Nothing that they experienced and went through with the Egyptians is God ever going to allow them to use as an excuse for them not to follow the 10 commandments. And what has happened, unfortunately, to many people that are descendants of slaves, black people representing this identity, is that they have used what has happened to them, the atrocities of slavery, to now excuse themselves and think that they're nullified from having to follow the 10 commandments. Yeah, right. You want God to bless you and you want God to avenge you, but you don't think that you need to be representing the creator and the government that you want or that you think or that you believe is supposed to be reimbursing you. As a parent, when someone does something wrong to your child, you're going to avenge your child, right? However, if you see your child out there behaving in a crazy way, a manner that you did not teach them, you're going to deal with them because yes, I'm going to handle what happened to you, but what you're not going to do is you're not going to get away with thinking that you can behave this way as a response to this situation. That's what good parents do. You follow? God is a good father, right? So he will avenge you for what has occurred to you, but do not think for a second that you don't have a responsibility to act like you are his child, to behave like you are his child, to speak like you are his child, to live like you are his child. And what has happened, there's many people that claim to be friends or, allies of the black community. And what they're doing is they're blessing you with their mouths, but they're cursing you with the things that they're introducing into you. They're introducing curses into you. Now, I am not a person that operates in a sense of religion. I'm not a religious person. However, I understand principle. And when you understand spiritual principles, you understand that yes, there could be something coming towards you that's a blessing, but you yourself can knock your blessing over by cursing it, by the things and the ways in which you operate, the way you think and the way you live your life. And that's what many Black people are dealing with. Now, because of my awareness of these Balaam spirits that are operating, and they come in all forms. Not only are they prophets, not only are they teachers, not only are they pastors, they're politicians, they're business leaders, they're influencers. Any place where power is operating, they are there. Any place where there is an authority that has the ability to speak to the Black community, they are there. They are there influencing, and they are there introducing, enticing, and seducing. So I'm looking at this people that they're supposed to be walking with God so that God can continue to bless and enrich them, but instead they are forfeiting their own blessings by aligning with the teachings and the lifestyles of these people. So if you personally feel like the outcome of what has happened to you in terms of generation after generation after generation, if you feel like your whole life has been flipped upside down, that you have not gotten the opportunities that you should have gotten, that you're not in the proper position that you should have been in, and you feel like all of this is the outcome of slavery, this is all the residue of slavery that has rolled over into your life, and you're still dealing with the consequences of that. If that is your feeling of it, and you want God to launch you, yourself, and the next generation into a different atmosphere, an atmosphere of abundance, an atmosphere of prosperity, of good health, all of these different things, if that is what you want God to do, then you need to align with Him. You need to partner with Him. I need you guys to understand this. Like, listen, hear me. If you truly want generational wealth, generational blessings, and your faith is in God to make that happen, you have to align with the kingdom. If you don't hear anything else from me, hear that. You must make it your mission in life, your purpose, to align with the kingdom. Okay? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So I wrote the Black Child's Guide to Surviving America as essentially a map. How do you navigate around all of these different voices and all of these different influences that are trying to get into your mind? Because essentially what is going to destroy you is going to be what you receive and what you digest, right? And I'm not forfeiting my blessing, and I don't want my children and my children's children's children forfeiting their blessing and what God has for them because they got wrapped up in some Black doctrine, some white doctrine, some American doctrine. None of that. No. If we're going to follow any doctrine, it's going to be sound doctrine, and it's going to be kingdom doctrine, most importantly. Not Christian doctrine, not your religious doctrine, not your Jehovah Witness, not your Hebrew Israelites, not your Catholicism, not your Pentecostal, not your Baptist, not your Methodist, any of these denominations. No, I'm talking about kingdom. Kingdom. That's the only thing. No religion, none of that stuff. What Jesus came to do, that. What's happening is that you guys want God to simply look at what has happened wrong to you and avenge it, but not place any responsibility on you in terms of how you live and how you behave and how you go about your life. It does not work that way. If that's what you want, then go avenge yourself. And that's what many of you guys are doing. You're trying to figure out ways how to manipulate, how to fight, how to cry, how to do all of these different things to essentially get someone to feel bad enough or feel afraid enough to reimburse you. Me, I don't need all of that because I know my Creator and I believe that He is going to do what He said He's going to do. But I also have a responsibility on my end as well. And so do you. So going back to what John Kilpatrick said, no, not everyone is going to be reimbursed because just like those Israelites, God is going to deliver you, but you're going to end up destroying yourself because you're going to end up following ways like so many people are already doing that are going to destroy you. So what I'm saying is if you truly want God to bless you and you're waiting on Him to avenge you as a people, then the very least you can do is honor Him. Like, wouldn't that make Him work on your behalf even quicker if you honored Him and honored what He told you to do? You guys want to dishonor God but want God to avenge you. It doesn't work that way, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't work that way.